Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I am your host, Kirsten Howe, and this is another live version of our podcast. I am very excited today about my guest. Well, I'm always excited when I have a guest. It's always a lot more fun when I have a guest. But I'm particularly excited about this conversation. I'm looking forward to it. My guest is Scott Fuller, and he's a real estate broker. We're going to be talking about what I've been seeing, and perhaps a lot of you also have been seeing, is at least a growing trend among my clients, people who are moving away from the Bay Area and even moving away from California. So I'm going to introduce Scott in just a minute more formally, but I just want to remind everybody, in case this is your first time watching, we are going to talk about 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to open it up to questions. So if you have a question, just go ahead and type it in the comment section. You can type it at any time. It'll be there when I'm ready to go read your question. So just know that in about 15-20 minutes, we'll answer your questions. So go ahead and type in there any question that you have. All right, and we're recording this, so if you have friends, family who you think should see it and they missed it right now, it'll be on our website in about 24, 48 hours, something like that. You can always find it. Okay, now, Scott Fuller, my guest, has 25 years of consulting and sales experience in real estate, professional services, and technology with companies such as IBM Global Services and PeopleSoft. He's a real estate broker, and he is the founder of leavingthebayarea.com. He's got lots of media experience. He's kind of like a local celebrity, I think.
I don't know about that, Kirsten.
He's been featured as a relocation expert on KRN4 Bay Area, NBC Bay Area, KABC Los Angeles, NBC Los Angeles, SF Gate, San Francisco Business Times, Silicon Valley Business Journal, KGO San Francisco, Bloomberg News, Reason Magazine, and Zero Hedge, which I don't know what that is, but it's still very impressive. His company, leavingthebayarea.com, provides full spectrum real estate relocation services for all kinds of people, retirees, working families, working individuals, and they also do corporate relocations. So Scott, thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful that you are able to take a little bit of your busy day and talk to me.
Kirsten, thanks so much for having me. And that was a wonderful introduction. I might have to have you come on and do that other times for me. That was great.
That's what I do. Okay, so let's get into it. As I said, I think I'm seeing this as a growing trend among my clients, which might have something to do with the demographic of the people that I tend to work with. But a lot of clients are, kind of approaching retirement age or recently retired. And I'm hearing a lot of, we're thinking about moving when we retire. But you are a relocation expert, so I'm imagining you see a lot more of this than I do. Who is moving out of California and why?
That's a great question. So we are seeing certainly older folks and retirees who are moving a little bit more. A lot of them, and for different reasons. They're moving out because they want to follow their kids and their grandkids. Perhaps they've got a lot of equity tied up in their home and they're looking to put that to work on a fixed income in a lower cost area. So that's really a big piece of it. So I would say, maybe 65% are at retirement age or nearing retirement age. And then the rest are going to be, working families and individuals.
Yeah, I think that whole being able to buy something maybe bigger and cheaper, that lower cost of living, I hear that a lot. Taxes
are a big one. Absolutely. Yeah.
The other one that I hear, and I can relate to this, the traffic and the congestion and the crowdedness is getting kind of out of control in the Bay Area for a lot of people.
I think when you've lived here for 30 to 40 years, as a lot of people have, or even longer, things have changed. And so they look at it and they say, I absolutely love the climate. I love, the geography. I love the areas and the proximity to everything that the Bay Area and California offers. But things have changed and they're kind of looking to slow down a little bit. So it's really a quality of life in addition to, cost of living. And so when you put those two together, it really makes a lot of sense for people to consider, is there a better opportunity for our retirement somewhere outside of the Bay Area or even outside of California?
Yeah. And so people you're seeing people leaving California, as I am, but you're also seeing people just leaving the Bay Area and going to other parts of California?
We are. I think that there's a couple different dynamics. You have we have people who want to move out of the Bay Area to get a lower cost of living, but they might have some, parents that they have to look after, or they still want to be close to friends and family. Or if they're still working, they're going to be, potentially, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little more detail, but within a close proximity to, get into San Francisco or wherever they might work in the Bay Area.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of people are choosing locations like Sacramento. If we look at areas like Folsom, Roseville, El Dorado Hills, some very popular areas that people are going to where you can get a better cost of living. I mean, it's not a lot cheaper because prices have certainly gone up there, but even getting into, Reno, Sparks, some of those areas allows them to still be in the same proximity to the Bay Area, but to be able to realize some of those benefits of moving away.
Yeah. But as long as you're in California, you're still paying California taxes.
That's the thing. And some people say we want a place in Tahoe, and so they're going to Incline Village, and they're not going to the other side of the lake. So there's certainly a lot of tax and financial strategy that people are considering, when they're looking to determine where they're going to go next.
Are you seeing, or do you anticipate seeing this trend increase or accelerate because of the fallout from the pandemic that we're currently experiencing?
I do, and it's going to be interesting to see how everything unfolds. We saw a lot of people who were considering, planning moving out of the Bay Area or out of California. And then when we got to March and everything kind of started to hit and people were sheltered in place, it put a lot of people's plans on hold.
Right.
I would say in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, we've seen people come back around and say, look, we don't know how long this is going to end or this is going to last. We don't want to continue to put our plans on hold for making a move. So they're really starting to come back out and get back into doing research. And even for people who are comfortable traveling, getting on an airplane and visiting, the area that they're interested in going to, just to kind of keep plans moving along. As far as, kind of the business side of it from corporate and from employees, I think that we are starting to see a lot of trends on that front.
Like people who have, as I have discovered, I can work from anywhere. I can do a lot of my work from anywhere.
Yeah.
Even if I'm still working, I'm not quite at retirement age, maybe I should relocate. I just wonder how big a trend that's going to be.
Yeah, I think that right now we're seeing some interesting stats come out of San Francisco and even the South Bay. So we've seen, obviously there's a lot of office and commercial space that's coming up, leases that are coming up. So a lot of companies are starting to, try to negotiate themselves out of those office leases because they just don't have the need for it any longer. So we've seen, and with apartments, we've seen a 15% reduction, in what apartments are able to fetch for a monthly rent. That's in San Francisco and the South Bay. We haven't seen that in years. And we've also seen active listings in San Francisco are really surging. They're up, the week ending July 5th, we've seen a 65% increase in active listings since this time last year, which tells us that, obviously we kind of missed the spring selling season in real estate, right? We kind of passed through that. So we're seeing a little bit late, but we are seeing a dynamic shift take place right now where there's a lot of people who maybe aren't necessarily leaving the Bay Area, but they're moving out of more of those high density areas. So that could be one of two reasons. It could be COVID related, where they want more personal space. They want to get into, from a condo or a loft into a single family.
They want a yard. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of want that. But some of it also is, well, now if I don't have to come into the office 5 days a week and I have some flexibility of coming in once or twice a week, then that gives them an opportunity to, be able to afford more and perhaps look at, some different school alternatives for their kids in different areas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I hadn't considered that. That's a good point. All right. Well, now we all know that moving is a big project. I think it's one of the top 3 stressful life events.
Yeah. It's no fun. Yeah.
So I can imagine that moving and layering on top of that, relocating to a whole new place that you've never lived before, for most people, that's doubly stressful or extra stressful. About 175 years ago, when I graduated from college, I just moved myself to California. I didn't know anybody, never been there. I just decided I'd do it. That's the kind of thing you do when you're 22.
It's easy when you're younger, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
But I imagine it's just really, a very daunting process. So what have you seen are some of the particular challenges for your relocating clients?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is mental. It's being able to prepare yourself mentally for the move. Okay. If you've been in a particular area for 20, 30, 40 years, as a lot of people are who are considering moving out, it's completely overwhelming. So it's not just the logistics of where do I start, what are the steps, what's the process and the time frame, but it's being able to get your mind around it emotionally to be able to say, I'm ready for a fresh start. I know that I'm going to lose, some things in my life to gain more. And that's where I think a lot of people have to weigh those options and say, are the benefits going to outweigh the drawbacks of the move? And a lot of it comes down to just being prepared, Kirsten. That's, I think, one of the biggest things. People come immobile, and it's difficult for them to make a decision if they can't visualize the process and really be able to understand what the end goal is and the reason for making that move. So I think as people, really sit down and think about it and come together, with the visualization and the end game, the end goal for them, then it's easier for them to say, okay, I've now, pushed it through the emotional side of my brain. Now it's time to, really kind of plan it out. And that's where, we can kind of come in and help make that an easier process for them.
Yeah, I really can relate to that, because when something is so big and so overwhelming, I can get stuck too.
Yeah.
But kind of working myself through it in my head can unblock me. And I am going to say here that's, I think, the idea behind your company, leavingthebayarea.com. You have created a system for people, so you kind of take them from beginning to end. These are the things you have to think about, you have to accomplish. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I'll give you just a little background. So the reason that I created it is that I understand that it's overwhelming, and I wasn't aware of a company that was offering that. If you look at kind of the corporate relocation, somebody's moving an employee from point A to point B, they have that luxury, right? So they've got somebody who takes care of it for them. But for the average person, for the average person, for the rest of us, it's overwhelming. So it's really being able to have kind of the initial conversation. And you mentioned earlier that some people may not really know exactly where they want to go. And that's probably 30 to 35% of people that we talk to, will say, Scott, I don't know where I want to go, but I just know that it's not here anymore. And so it's really kind of having that discovery consultation to find out, what is it that you're missing here? Or what is it that you no longer like? What is it that you're looking for? And so we kind of try to define, the top few elements of what they're looking to accomplish with this move, and then help them determine what could be some suitable options. And then you really get more granular and drill down quite a bit more. But, the goal in the end is to mentally get them past that speed bump, right? That's keeping them. And let's face it, any life decision, sometimes it helps to talk to somebody, right? To kind of just talk it out. Even if you know what the answer is in your head, or you know what the right thing to do is, it helps to have that conversation. And then we can start with, okay, here's what we do first, and here's what that roadmap looks like to get you to your destination, based off the time frame you're looking at.
Yeah. Well, so I just want to share with our viewers and listeners that Scott, what he's talking about is a real thing. It's actually also a tangible thing. And I have right here a copy of his 12-step roadmap to your next destination. And it literally is 12 steps. It's very, very logical, very systematized. He is generously providing this to us. It's going to be on our website, on absolutetrustcounsel.com, and on the podcast page. You can download it in a few days. It's not up there yet, but this is just brilliant. I just find it to be brilliant, and it's exactly what you said. This is it on paper, and then when they're working with you, that's what they get in real life.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for making that available. And I encourage you all to go check that out, absolutetrustcounsel.com. In the show notes for this episode, there's a lot of other stuff on our website that's useful, but that's the thing we're focusing on right now. And it's really great. And thank you, Scott, so much for it.
My pleasure. And by the way, you've got a wonderful website. I mean, the amount of resources on there and just the way that it's designed and set up, it's really fantastic. So if your viewers and listeners have not looked at your website, they really should. A lot of great interviews as well.
Thank you. You can come back anytime.
Okay.
Help me plug my website. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to me, because I'm going to look at our questions. And we do have some questions in here. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, we've got some people saying, we're glad to have Scott's expertise here today. Happy to have Scott's expertise. Okay, that's not a question. Here's a question. How far in advance should I start planning my move?
Very rarely do we have people that, come to us and say, we need to, there's an imminent change in our life and we have to make a move in the next, 60 to 90 days. Usually it's pretty well planned out. A lot of times it's going to be based off of a life event. And so some of those more typical life events are going to be anticipating a retirement date, which it seems, and I don't know if you're seeing this, but it seems more people are retiring earlier than planned, whether it's a choice or kind of a forced retirement, but we're seeing that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Also, we see a lot of people who are, their kids are going to be graduating from high school. That's always a big milestone, right? So once the kids graduate, that's when we're going to go.
We don't have to live in this school district anymore. Yeah.
You don't have to live in the school district, and in more cases than not, the kids are going out of state anyway. So it's not like you have, you're staying here. And in some cases, the parents are falling into kids or, soon to be grandkids. So what I would recommend, Kirsten, is, you can, if you start a year in advance, you don't need to, but that's usually plenty of time to make you feel like you're not rushed in making a decision. Because as you mentioned, in our document, we outline the steps involved in a typical relocation. There isn't a fixed time frame on that, but it certainly helps so you don't feel rushed. And the more prepared you feel, the easier the process is going to be for you mentally. And so, we have clients that we're talking to and we're, getting information and consulting with that are 3 years down the road. That's absolutely fine. But it helps them to feel more comfortable because look, if they have the end goal in mind, it helps them to reach that destination and it keeps them focused on what their goal is if they start early. It keeps you more on track.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot involved in moving. So giving yourself as much time as you need is, I'm sure, better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it gives you more opportunity on both ends, on the selling and the buying, to, wait for what you want. If you aren't in a rush.
That's right. Sure.
Okay. What options are available for moving my personal items?
Yeah, moving is really a big piece of it. I think that you're going to have full service. You know, when I look at kind of preparing for a move, you're going to have, you know, a few different buckets, right? You're going to have going through and decluttering the house, right? So it's going to be, giveaway, throw away, and keep. Once you've done that, you feel pretty organized, you feel pretty good. Okay, well then how are we going to move everything? Some people like the typical full service mover model where somebody comes in, a group of, people come in, they wrap everything up, they make it look real nice, they load up the truck and they move it. That's going to be the more expensive model.
Sure. Yeah.
But for some people that say, you know what, I just don't want to deal with it. I want somebody to pack up everything in the kitchen, get everything going and take care of it for us. That's an option. But we've got a lot of hybrid model options that are out there right now. Some, including pods. U-Pack is a popular one. And what you can do is you can go on their website and you can put in the information on your home and on your belongings to be able to get an estimate of, what it would cost, to move that. They essentially drop off a trailer and you can pack it up yourself, or you can hire local movers to pack it up for you. And then based off of the cubic square footage that you use, that's what you're going to be charged. And then depending on where you're going to, your items may arrive, within 5 to 7 days. So, and of course you can go, the U-Haul where you do it 100% yourself. So there's a lot of different models out there, a lot of different cost models. What we are seeing though, and I think this surprises a lot of people in the Bay Area, moving out of the Bay Area is tremendously more expensive than moving back in. And the reason is, now, if you can price out a U-Haul truck, let's say, for example, from San Francisco to Phoenix, but getting that truck, may cost you $1,800 to $2,000. It seems pretty expensive for a U-Haul truck.
Yeah.
Getting the same truck, if you were moving from Phoenix to San Francisco, is about $600 or $700. So there's a significant difference because they have to keep into consideration the money that it takes for them to get that truck that got taken to Phoenix. They've got to pay for it to come back over.
Come back.
And so the costs are, quite a bit higher moving out. And so that's something, that you do want to consider when you're budgeting for your move.
Well, I think to me, maybe I shouldn't say this, but that sounds like there's a net in one direction. The more trucks are going in one direction than in the other.
100%. I mean, U-Haul is, they've got some good stats and some good data. And, for migration patterns, you can look at that to say, where are people going to? And they actually publish an annual report. And it says, where are people moving the most out of and where are the people moving the most into? And for 2019, most people were moving out of the Bay Area and most people were moving into Texas. And so there's certainly a lot of trends that we can look at with this data and be able to say, yep, this is where, people are going. But one thing I want to point out, Kirsten, is, we hear a lot about, especially over the last, probably year and a half, this mass exodus out of California. Now, look, there's a lot, the media loves to jump on this because it's a great story. It's very interesting. It's very catchy.
Yeah.
There are a lot, there's a good amount of people moving out of California, but the reality is that there's a lot of people, especially since COVID, who are moving out of the higher density areas in San Francisco, but they are staying in the Bay Area. In fact, Zumper, which is a website that does apartment listings, they're saying that 72% of the people within the Bay Area that are searching for apartments outside of San Francisco are looking, or I should say people in San Francisco are looking for apartments outside of San Francisco. 72% of them are still looking in the Bay Area. And if they're not looking in the Bay Area, then they're looking, in the Central Valley, even down to Los Angeles. So there's, and if we look at a lot of the numbers from Redfin, the Redfin data shows us a very similar trend. Okay. And, so we see that a lot of the, younger people want to keep the culture. They want to keep, they want to stay in the area. So if they can stay within a couple of hours of, working, even if they, only have to come in once or twice a week, we're seeing, a lot of migration to the North Bay and to the East Bay, which is, causing a lot of vacancy both in the commercial market as well as the residential market in San Francisco.
Yeah, yeah. And also the South Bay, are they migrating out of there as well?
We are seeing, we've typically seen a pretty big migration out of the South Bay into areas like Fremont, Newark, even into the Tri-Valley, right, to Pleasanton, Livermore, Dublin area. We've always seen that, and then the migration coming in is typically from out of state because they're highly educated, highly paid workers. So that's usually who are going to fill those tech positions. But once they realize, hey, $4,000, $5,000 a month doesn't get you a lot in the South Bay, as far as what your monthly, housing payments would be, then they naturally continue to go east a little bit.
Okay, I have one more question in here. You sort of answered it, but what are some popular areas people are moving to? And you said the most popular one was Texas right now. What other areas are people choosing?
Yeah, I think Texas is popular just because the amount of business growth that's happening in Austin and Dallas. It's just, and Tesla just announced that they are going to do their new Gigafactory in Austin. I think they just made that announcement yesterday. But I would break it down into two categories, Kirsten. We've got one category of people, let's call them retirees. They are going to tax-friendly states like Nevada, and I would say a portion of them are going to 55 plus communities, but not a lot of them. So we're typically seeing them go into Nevada, Arizona, especially, the Prescott area has become very, very popular, which is a little bit higher of an elevation. So it's not quite so the killer heat, that you get in the valley. But those are big locations. Boise is really exploding a lot with people, not just from California, but from different areas. So I would say that those are probably the higher, and Reno, and then of course Sacramento. So for retirees, those seem to be some of the more popular destinations. If we're looking at tech workers, whether it's individuals or families, they typically want to stay in an area that is considered a tech hub. Because, even though you can go to Casper, Wyoming and get a whole lot of house and a whole lot of land for not much, they don't want to feel like they're out there, isolated. So we typically see them go to Portland, Seattle, Denver, the Phoenix area, and Austin. Those seem to be, some of the popular destinations. And then we have some people who are just interested in going to Florida, the Carolinas, and some of those one-offs if it's not real important that they stay close to the West Coast.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you so much, Scott. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm sure my viewers and listeners did as well. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, Kirsten. This has been great. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that, and I'm just going to remind you again that the recording is going to be on our website, absolutetrustcounsel.com. We are here to help you. We help clients with estate planning, estate administration, Medi-Cal planning, special needs planning. We're here, we're working. COVID is not slowing us down. So if there's anything that you need help with, go ahead, go to our website, absolutetrustcounsel.com, and schedule your discovery call, and we will get you started. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to connecting with you next time.